You rent out your Airbnb for 32 days, but the renter decides to extend their stay without your approval and claims that they're your tenant and have tenants' right. And you've been trying to get this squatter up out your house for a long time, and you finally succeed. Why exactly wasn't she able to do that? Well, according to Richard Bianco, who represents both landlords and tenants, Bianco said it doesn't matter if someone paid to sleep in your home for 30 nights or 100 days. Once there's a transaction of money or favors, they gain protection. He says that's how homeowners unwillingly become landlords. If somebody pays more in exchange for sleeping somewhere, in most cases, the courts are going to find that a tenancy exists, says Bianco. In protections of the Rental Housing Act apply, all the eviction protection and notice requirement and leasing requirement and things that make it really hard to evict a tenant apply. Romero said she paid for some of the months she's been on the property, but said issues started when she stopped paying. She said she had a series of unfortunate events and lost $17,000. I don't care how much money you lost. Lady asked you to get up out of her house. That is not your residence. And it's crazy work to me because you see this a lot lately where you have these squatters taking over people's homes and the homeowner is paying a hefty cost to get these squatters out. Amount of money that this lady lost due to Romero being in her house, she should have to pay that woman back because it's ridiculous. And this isn't her first time doing this. She's done this to somebody else. That's why she felt comfortable doing it on here. And also the owner of the property, ma'am, when you start renting out your place, you have to start understanding the laws. The biggest problem for the landlord becomes the longer somebody is staying there without paying anything, they don't really have any recourse. Bianco said those who know the system delay court with notions and complaints to live in the home rent free as long as possible. Whether you agreed to a lease or not, if I own a home, I know to get the person out, I have to make sure I go through the process to get them out, Romero says. We offered her $25,000 to leave and really $45,000 a free stay for the $100 per night, Douglas said. All right, if you don't leave under that, I don't know what. Everyone has financial issues, Romero said. No one is free of something happening and then beginning 1 month or 1 week away from paying their rental payment. First and foremost, ma'am, she was going to pay you $2,500 to leave her home. You was like, no, I got issues. Don't nobody care about your issues. She got issues. You're being a pest in somebody's life. That's why you gotta know some people sometimes to deal with certain issues. Because man, it would have been fist to cuff. You could leave voluntarily or involuntarily. I'm gonna let you choose. You threatening me? No, I'm going to let you choose. Because ain't nobody about to do. One thing you not about to do is be digging up in my pockets. You not about to do that. Like, this woman didn't do nothing to you. It's crazy work to me that people take advantage of people that's just trying to make a living. She still has to pay the mortgage on that property. She's taking an L while you taking trips around the country, running a nonprofit, all the while squatting in this woman's house, and then have the audacity to have an attitude about it. You ain't ran into the right person yet.
Felicia Ashley is learning this isn't the first time the so-called unwanted guest has refused to leave a property.
I found court records revealing that Romero stayed in multiple properties in and around D.C. rent-free for months while they went through the eviction process.
Court records show at your previous apartment you were also getting evicted for not paying rent. And
so that wasn't for that place, it was for a previous place where something happened during COVID when everyone was not receiving payment. I'm an entrepreneur and I also have a nonprofit.
Court records show Shadja Romero faced eviction from 2 other D.C. properties before booking Roshane Douglas's Airbnb nearly a year ago. I reviewed the records with real estate attorney Rich Bianco.
Scrolling down the docket here, she knows what she's doing. So this isn't the first rodeo.
Court records show that in October 2021, she had a year lease at the Jameson at Dakota Apartments. Those owners also filed a suit against Romero. It shows she stayed months past the end of her lease and did not pay anything between May 2022 and January 2023. She also signed a legal agreement to pay the Jameson $35,000 in back rent, but she did not follow through with that agreement. She was officially evicted 8 months after she stopped paying.
I did not go to court for eviction for Ava Noma.
5 days after she was evicted from the Jameson, records show she moved into Ava Noma. She paid 1 month's rent and owes them nearly $50,000. The property tried to evict her multiple times, but there was a fire, which I confirmed with DC Fire and DMS started in her unit while she was there.
Ava Noma is the one showing that you were in the process of being evicted for paying 1 month's rent when you were there for 13.
So no, that would not be accurate.
Again,
just sitting up there just lying. I'm an entrepreneur and I have a nonprofit. No, you need a job. You don't need to have no nonprofit, and you don't need to be an entrepreneur because apparently you're not making enough money to survive off your entrepreneurship. You're a scammer that's taking advantage of the system and then want to pretend like you innocent. She gonna run into the right one.
Show Romero filed a motion to delay the eviction, this time citing the fire and saying insurance needed to see the damage in the unit. She booked the Airbnb as she was getting evicted from that property. I found multiple tenant and landlord cases against her in and around DC when she went by a different name at the time. In addition to that, I saw at least a dozen liens against her, as well as a case claiming that she paid for a down payment for a vehicle and made no other payments after that. Now, since these discoveries, Romero has said that she is not speaking to us anymore. For now, reporting from the...
Y'all should have gave them debtors her address because they deserve to get their money. Felicia Ashley, this is the news anchor, and she did her big one on this. She actually got an interview with the lady, which we're about to watch.
So first, let's just start with your first name and your last name and how you spell it.
Shadja.
Do you mind if I close?
That's fine. Just maybe not the screen door, since we don't know if...
So just close which one?
That one, that door.
Okay, good. Got it, okay.
She's sitting up there like she the victim.
First name and last name and spell it for me, love.
Shadja Romero, Shadija, last name Romero.
Okay, so we know why we are here. Tell me how it got to this point.
In February of this year, I moved into the unit initially through an Airbnb. There was a month agreement, which I paid for on the Airbnb platform due to a fire, which I then asked the owner if we could extend the time frame in the home. We came to an agreement that I could do that. She sent me monthly invoices, which I paid those monthly invoices in order.
What are receipts? Are you paying it? You got a history of paying only a month worth of rent
to stay in the unit. I had a month where I had a financial loss of over like $17,000.
Was that due to work or personal?
It was a personal issue. I helped someone in the past and it came back to bite me because everyone can see, you can search me because I'm not hiding from anyone. So they were able to find me, and then I was held liable for something I helped someone do. So that put me in a financial strain, but either way, I paid. I still made the payment. I made the payment late because I had the issue. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. I didn't mean to get emotional. I'm trying to...
I know you didn't. At this particular point, you might be nominated for an Oscar because ain't nothing wrong with you. Just sitting up there just lying. I took a $17,000 loss. And wait, I'm getting emotional. It don't matter if you took a loss or not. You have people out here that have lost their jobs or have fallen on bad times that are still making a way to pay their rent. I have no sympathy for you, man. You have been on a bad time for a while. You got evicted from your other apartment. It's a high likelihood you the one that went up in there and started that fire. You only like to pay 1 month of rent, and then you make those people's life a living hell until you no longer can. You're a scammer. Then got the audacity to talk about you an entrepreneur. You're a horrible entrepreneur because you're not making any money.
Speak clearly. The financial thing was, like I said, almost $17,000. So it sent me into a depression where I was considering Because it was such a big loss. I was trying to purchase a home. That's why I had so much money. But anyway, I paid the rent. I paid it late. In October, there was the same thing. With the invoice being sent, the invoice is being sent every month. Prior to me going out of the country, well, actually, I was going to make a payment on the 15th of October. On the 15th of October,
her hands moving so much like that because she coming up with lies in her head that she gonna tell y'all. First and foremost, ma'am, it would have been extremely difficult for you to get a house because your credit is shot. When you go up there to a bank and you trying to get approved for a loan for a house, they're going to look into your background. You have a long history of not paying people. You've gotten evicted out of multiple locations. You have liens against you. So I know you were not in the process of getting no house. You was in the process of making this woman's life a living hell. That's what you was in the process of doing. You don't need to be traveling out of the country if you just took a $17,000 loss. And even if they had came after you for $17,000, we already know prior behavior, you wasn't about to pay that person those $17,000. So you could cut the cap.
My daughter's car, her steering wheel locked while she was driving, and I had to get to her because she was on the roadway, and the issue I needed to make sure that she was safe and get her resolved. That took me past the hours of like bank hours, so I didn't make my payment on that day because the bank had closed. I had the emergency situation with my daughter. The next day I went to retrieve the funds for the payment because I was going out of the country and I wanted it, taken care of while I was gone.
If you got a bank, it's a high likelihood that your bank has Zelle. Why you didn't get that agreement in writing? How much were you supposed to be paying this woman per month? Why is it that every single time you have a financial difficulty, it becomes somebody else's problem? Things happen in everybody's life. Some things that are in our control and some things that are not in our control. That's just life. And she's trying to use that as an excuse as into why she's a crappy tenant.
But it wasn't. The money was lost. I wasn't aware of that while I was gone. I came back, and so the 15th was the day the payment was due. 16th, I went out of the country. When I went out of the country, because I had just had that big financial loss, I turned all of my phones off because I was trying to decompress from, what I had been experiencing. And I didn't turn my phones back on until later that Monday. When I came into the property on that Monday, so that's maybe 6 days after the rent was due, the electricity to the home had been cut off. And at that point, that's when I was made aware that the payment had not been made. I then called Pepco to figure out, first I thought maybe it was a power outage. So first I called Pepco, found out it wasn't a power outage and that the owners had turned off they had turned off the electricity. So then the electricity was turned on so that we could have power. They turned the power back off because they said I had no right to turn the power on. I went to the courthouse that following day to file an emergency hearing because they had turned the power off and I didn't want them to be able to turn the power off again. No point prior to this did I state anything about tenant rights. Was I worried about anything about tenant rights? Because up until that point, everything was being paid every month. Even if it was paid 2 days late, it was paid.
Yeah, but ma'am, stop lying. Stop lying. If you were paying the way you were supposed to pay, she wouldn't have turned off the lights. She wouldn't have turned off, we call it PG&E out here. She wouldn't have turned your PG&E off. You had to go to the courts because she wasn't playing with you no more because you owed her money. That is a short-term rental. It is not a long-term rental. She does not want you in her home. You're talking about if the payment was late, then it's not on time. You don't know what that woman got going on in her life and what she may be dealing with financially. And you don't care because it's not affecting you. That's the problem.
After that, we've now progressed to the point where they come to the home almost every other day. I called the police. The police informed them that I was a resident or a tenant here. She said that frame.
Okay, where's the agreement at, ma'am? Show us the paperwork. Exactly. Why would you choose an Airbnb? Why didn't you go through like apartments or something like that to deal with it? Oh, that's right, because you have multiple evictions on your record. So you have to go through Airbnb to proceed with your scam because you knew they weren't going to check your background.
So she's been back to the property almost every day. They installed signs. The police told me that I could take down the signs because they were not legal signs issued by the court. They were signs that she had just had made in an attempt to try to harass me more and force me out of the property sooner. I told them that I could not be out of the property within a short period of time because I had just had that financial issue, but that I would go through this process that DC has to assist people who have had financial issue in order to pay the rent. Informed them that I would go through that, and that while they were going through the legal process while they initiated the legal process, because they had never initiated the legal process before to like have me moved from the property, that I would ensure that everything was paid. And then it's just been a continuance of them, the police and you coming to the home, and the power is currently off. So, yes.
Well, thank you for sharing your side, Juan. I heard you mention the tragedies of financial loss. I do know also when I went through the court records, the messages between you two, the Airbnb reservation, things like that. I heard you say there were payments, but transaction-wise, there was nothing for nearly 9-10 months, July.
Now she want to act
No,
like...
that's incorrect, and I can prove to you, I can show you the receipts that
Oh, please do. Just sitting up there just a lying. You mean I haven't paid rent in 9 to 10 months? That's a lie. No, it's the truth. Old habits die hard, and you have a habit of doing this, John.
Owner sent me direct links every month after March for payments. So I have been making payments via a PayPal link that they sent. If I can go and grab my phone, I can even show you a receipt that says it's to, I don't want to say the name, but the name of their investment group that I guess oversees the property. So I have been making payments. The first payment was made directly through Airbnb. After that time frame, we made an agreement that I would stay after, and she sent me direct links through PayPal to make the payments every month.
Go get your phone. There's no reason for that lady to lie on you. You have a history of doing this, man. I'm pretty sure you've told this story before. And because the laws haven't caught up with the times, you keep getting away with it.
1 or 2 months, I didn't make the payment through PayPal. I made it through Apple Pay or through Zelle, but the payment was made. So
go get your phone. Let's see the Zelle records. Let's see the Apple Pay records. Let's see the money coming out your account to the same investment firm.
Every month, she had to send me an invoice. I didn't have to request the invoice. She just sent the invoice because we were in agreement that I would be staying at the property. So that's untrue. I have not been here for 9-10 months and not been paying. That is inaccurate.
Okay.
And
I'll let you get after me, just so we can run through all the, in case you have to get anything else. Let's start from the beginning. When you made the Airbnb reservation, because I saw the reservation, you mentioned it was for a fire. Around that same time, court records show at your previous apartment, you were also getting evicted for not paying rent.
So that wasn't for that place. It was for a previous place where something happened during COVID when everyone was not receiving payment. I'm an entrepreneur and I also have a nonprofit. So that's what that was for. The fire that I actually had a fire. There's a police report, a fire report for it. The police came out, the fire department came out, determined that it was an electrical issue in the wall that then created.
Was it at the same apartment building?
For
Ava Noma, that apartment? Because that says 2023. It was, you were there 2023, 2024.
So Ava Noma is where I had the fire, yes.
Ava Noma is the one showing that you were in the process of being evicted for paying 1 month's rent when you were there for 13.
So no, that would not be accurate.
So the court records are not accurate?
I did not go to court for eviction for Ava Noma.
You just lying.
I did have a fire at that unit, yes.
I bet you did.
Just so you know, court
You
records
would've had to
do
fire
show
that
that
one.
they were evicting you. It has documents you also filed in that process. It also shows you trying to apply for EREP to stay there.
And no, I applied for it now through here, not for Ava Noma, because my payments were made for Ava Noma.
No, it wasn't. You wasn't making payments for 13 months, and you tried to get help to pay your rent there after they was about to kick your behind out. So you have applied for Ava Rep multiple times, and then you want to sit there and lie straight to her face? Stop the cap. Everybody lying but you, huh?
Okay. Just so you know, the court records do show something different. Might hear you on that. You mentioned that you're saying from the start of your Airbnb reservation to now, you've made every single payment.
Correct. And I can show you the receipts for those.
Okay. So you're saying Roshane Douglas, the homeowner, is essentially lying and saying that you have not made
Any
those payments.
Correct.
Okay.
She sent me links, direct PayPal links for payment.
Okay.
And there's no way I could pay it without having the PayPal links or having her Zelle information in order to send her those payments.
Which one is it, a direct link or Zelle? Because if you had Zelle, you could just show us. Y'all would have been there all night and all day waiting for them Zelle payments to show up because she's a liar. She ain't paid that woman her money. She ain't paid the apartment before that day money. That's why they keep evicting her. And Airbnb say they done kicked her off the platform good because people like this don't need to be able to abuse other people.
Okay. In some of the text messages between you and her, you did acknowledge that you hadn't paid.
Which month? Was it a May?
Multiple months, starting around August to now.
No. So it may have been okay, I didn't pay it yet, but it was then paid. But I have a payment for my August. I have receipts for my August payment. July, June, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. I have payments, receipts that show that the fire damage. And once they started doing the repairs and even completed the repairs, when we went back into the unit, the lease was actually up in April of that year. Once they completed the repairs in about May, everything still smelled like water and fire. And at that point, now the lease was up.
Okay.
No, at that point, she got evicted and she couldn't go back. For those of you that have gone through an eviction process, when a person is evicted, are they also trespassed from your property?
The lease was for an additional 20, I'm not sure, but it was for an extended period. So it was more than a year.
Okay.
And so the lease was officially up in April.
The lease was up in April.
And so then I had started a process with LEDC to purchase a home.
To purchase a home. Okay. And you're saying you're still here because the home purchase didn't complete, or?
Correct. So I started the home buying process with LEDC. They have a program where I believe it's called HPAP. HPAP will assist you with paying your down payment costs. This year, they switched the program to a lottery program for that assistance. So with the program, they will pay your down payment and your closing costs. Before, the program was just you applied and you got in. This year, it turned to a lottery. That program didn't actually open up until November. Okay. So the program didn't open up for you to even be considered for the lottery until November.
That's great. But why is you still at that woman's house? You talking about everything that's going on in your life besides you paying that woman her money and you getting up out of her residence. She does not want you there. Into your past and your credit probably play a part into you being able to enter those programs. Because I don't think you would have qualified with the issues that you got going on. Because they want to get you into a home, but they also want you to be able to keep that home. And you're somebody that don't like paying their bills.
Where are you in that process? Or let me ask you this. You mentioned you didn't, in the middle of your Airbnb process, you didn't go.
The process was never to stay here for forever. The plan was to go back, and then if not, then purchase a home, which is why I started the home buying process. Now that we are going through this here, I am going, even though we're going to still go through the court process, which I filed documents. No one filed documents initially. So if anyone was trying to get me out of the home, they would have filed paperwork to get me out of the home. And any of the months that they said that I did not make payments, that didn't happen. No one filed paperwork the Douglases didn't file paperwork until I filed paperwork.
They did give you a 30-day notice.
Which for 1 month that they did not receive a payment, and then they received the payment later. So let's say you're in an apartment or your home. Do you rent or do you own?
Own, but I also have a signed contract saying that I own, and or when I rented, I have a signed lease saying that I own.
So have you ever rented before?
Yes.
Okay. So when you pay your rent, if you don't pay your rent after, let's say, the 5th, then you get a notice that you didn't pay your rent, correct?
Right.
And then that notice might say, you haven't paid your rent, you need to pay the rent. We're filing this paperwork in the courthouse because you have not filed this paperwork. If you don't pay, then you need to vacate the unit.
Right.
Okay. So whenever she's provided a vacate notice, it might have been because the payment had not been received yet. Once the payment was received, she would send another invoice, and now we're in another month because that month that she did the vacate notice for was because the payment was late. If the payment was made, then there were no other issues. She then sent another invoice for the next month, and there was no longer an issue. The vacate notice would be if there wasn't payment made. So just like your apartment, like I said, if you rent an apartment, you pay the rent late, they give you a notice that you haven't made the payment. You make the payment and then everything is fine. And that is what has happened. So it has not been since I've been here in February that I have not been making payments. That is incorrect.
Did the Douglases ever, or did you and the Douglases ever sign a document or agree to you renting this property outside of that Airbnb reservation?
We have text messages, yes, where they agreed to me staying in the property after the initial Airbnb rental period.
Where is the text messages, ma'am?
So even as I was listening to the court hearing, it was stated that after the Airbnb 32 days was up, you mentioned you want to extend your stay at the Airbnb. And that's what that extension was, an extension of being an Airbnb guest. Are you saying you took that as an extension of, I'm now renting?
No. So we did not rent. We no longer did any rentals through Airbnb. The Airbnb rental was only 1 month through Airbnb. After that time frame, I went through paying the owners directly. So we extended the time frame. They agreed to allow me to stay in the space till whenever, I guess, until I don't make a payment. And then they go through a process.
You've acknowledged that you missed payments. You've acknowledged that you've been late on payments according to you. And you don't see that as a problem? It is a Airbnb. She is not a landlord. She does not want to be a landlord. You're forcing her into a position that she does not want. And that's the problem. And you understand that. And you're using the system against her. That's why when the system gets changed, you can blame people like her. Because they do crap like this. And they make it difficult on people that actually need tenant protection laws.
The initial process was not to stay in here for an extended amount of time. No, but it was to stay beyond well, it wasn't even to stay beyond the 30 days. But once we knew that I had to stay beyond the initial Airbnb rental, we no longer went through Airbnb. So there was never an extension of the Airbnb.
You didn't have to stay. You chose to stay. You could have went to a completely different Airbnb. Your problems are not her problems, ma'am.
Everything went directly through the owner. You're saying Airbnb as if I went to the Airbnb, rented it for 30 days, said I'm staying, and I'm not paying you anything. And then since that 30 days in February or March, it would have ended. I've been staying here without them knowing, and I haven't been paying. That would be inaccurate.
So you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that after the 30-day and everything was on Airbnb, once it left Airbnb, that's when the agreement started of to you a month-to-month stay
Correct.
here.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that you are going to leave, but you're going to go through the court process.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm going to leave before the court process finishes. But we are still going to go through the court process.
And why is that?
Because now you have caused me, when you decided to lock, so the police informed her that that they are not allowed to enter the property without 48 hours written notice, because I was staying here. Okay.
And not paying a dime in rent in somebody else's house.
On Thanksgiving, while I left to have Thanksgiving, they entered the unit without my knowledge to change the locks, turn off the power. That is when they didn't turn the power off through Pepco. They did something to the breaker box where then the breaker box is not sending power to the home. After she turned the power off in the home, when we got into the home, she then called CPS to tell them that my younger daughter, was in the home without power, but my daughter was leaving. She left. She hasn't stayed here because the temperature was cold. I couldn't leave the property because they had taken the batteries out of the door, and the doors could not be locked, and my property was still in there. So although we're going to go through the court process, because now you have said that I'm a squatter. A squatter is a person who illegally goes onto a property, then they have to have if your home that you own was vacant and no one was there, and then I decided I'm going to go into your home because I know it's vacant and you don't know that I'm going into the property. That is what a squatter is. A squatter is someone who goes agreement with them.
No, that's one form of a squatter. A squatter is also somebody like yourself. They extend they stay without the owner's permission and don't pay no rent. You have yet to produce any of those receipts that you claim to be in your phone. You're going through the legal process because you want to be a thorn in that woman's side. And because you have not been held accountable for your previous misdeeds, you're going to continue to do this.
It's also not just if the home's vacant, it's if you're there without the owner's permission, and you're not leaving.
Yes, if you had, maybe that other part is there, but we had an agreement. So I'm not here because I had an Airbnb rental in February to March. And I said, you know what? I had an Airbnb rental for a month. I'm never leaving here and I'm never going to pay you anything. And you need to get me out through the courts. That was never the case. We had an agreement.
That through text though.
Oh, I said that through text about afterwards when you decided to then start harassing me. I said, you're going to have to go through the court process. Yes, in order to legally get me out of the property. That didn't mean that I'm staying in the property indefinitely. I'm literally going to be leaving the property as soon as possible.
As soon as possible was months ago. As soon as possible was after your 32 days were up. You do not get to wreak havoc into other people's lives because your life is crappy. This woman is having to spend thousands of dollars because you want to be ignorant. Legally, they're giving you more protection than a homeowner.
Start packing up because now it's gotten to a point where it messes with somebody's emotional being and their peace, and we're not doing that.
Oh, we're not doing that. It's affecting my peace. What about her peace? You don't care about the financial strain that you're putting on that woman and the emotional distress that the financial strain you're putting on her may cause. You don't know whether or not she was using the money from that Airbnb to support her daughter or her parent, and now she's struggling to recoup that money in some other area, all the while she still has to pay mortgage on that property if she hasn't paid it up. But you don't care because you paid your 1 month of rent and you have all the rest of these difficulties going on in your life. So it's cool.
There were payments made every month prior to that. So you can't say that you didn't want me. If you didn't want me in the property, why were you sending me invoices for payments? Why were payments made and you accepted them? Why did you accept any of those payments if you didn't want me in the property?
Show us the payments.
Let's say you issued a 30-day notice in June. Let's say she did. I don't know that she did. Let's say in June, I didn't make my payment on the 5th or the 15th, and you sent me a 30-day notice, but then I paid the rent on the following day.
Why'd you not leave after signing the document stating that you weren't a tenant and that you would leave November 15th if she gave you $2,500?
So whatever that agreement is, that is an agreement that the owner, Mr. Douglas, he said that his wife was under an amount of stress because I had paid the rent late previously, and that she was now distressed, and he and I have had a pretty much cordial relationship after that. I told him I wasn't sure that I would be able to leave the property within that time frame because I had just suffered a big financial loss.
Don't nobody care. They want you out of their property. If somebody is willing to pay you $2,500 to leave, that means they don't want you there. They don't care about you having a big financial loss. Get over it. You're causing them a big financial loss. I told them I may not be able to leave. You signed the paperwork acknowledging that you were not a tenant. They want you out. Leave. You think it's funny right now? Cause you using this stuff in your favor. And when it come back on you, you not gonna like it. And it don't mean that it's gonna come back on you in the same exact way. It doesn't. I always say it. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever man soweth, so shall he reap. Ma'am, you are a thief. You are a manipulator. You are a liar. That stuff comes back on you. It's not okay to treat people like that. You're altering other people's lives with your decisions as well, because you're taking money out of their pocket. They are not your end all be all. That is not Burger King. You cannot have it your way. You got all the excuses in the book as to why you still in that woman's home.
In the month previously. So there was no way I could guarantee that I would be out within that time frame. Before that time frame came, I informed them there's no way I can be out before that time frame because of this financial issue that I informed you of. They don't have to be accepting of the financial issue that I have, because whether the financial issue exists, rent has to be paid, right? But if rent is not paid due to a financial issue or whatever issue, I was then informed while I'm going through the process to then move out and get everything done that you had to go through the courts. I went to the court in order to make sure the power was on while we're doing that. The court informed me, the court attorneys at landlord and tenant informed me that nothing had been filed against me to get me out of the property. Nothing had ever been filed, and that I would have to file in order to protect myself from them turning the power off until I moved out of the property.
If you did have somewhere to go with all this around, you mentioned she was harassing you. And
this just started, so it's not like the harassment has not been for months. So when you're saying harassment and you're saying why haven't I leved prior, it seems as if this is an issue that has been going on for months, which it has not. This has only been like a 2 week. This has been like now it's been a month process. So it hasn't been some process that has been going on for months. It has not gone on for months. It has not. It's only been going on now for a month, literally a month.
So you're saying just November or just December?
The end of October is when the stuff started. The harassment started in November.
Okay.
So the harassment didn't start until mid-November. So the harassment, the sign, the cutting the power off, that was November. Well, the power was cut off in October 1st, but then they turned the power back on, but then they turned it back off in November. So the issues didn't start until October, November, the end of October, the beginning.
Ma'am, they cut the power off in October. You went down to get it cut back on and they cut it back off again because they don't want you there. So if somebody that you're renting from is turning off the power, that is a telltale sign that they don't want you there.
Of November. There was no harassment prior to that. There was no issue with installing signs. None of that started months ago, and I'm just staying here dealing with harassment. No, that's not the case.
Where do you think the missing link or disconnect is between you and the homeowners, between you feeling and saying that you are renting and them saying that you are here without their permission and illegally? In one sentence, what would you say that disconnect or link is?
I think the disconnect is simply you not wanting to I don't know. I would say it was simply that you have decided that you don't want me in the property anymore. And instead of trying to do that the legal way, let's say, even if you go the legal way, I'm planning to leave before. Let's say she decides to go to landlord and tenant court tomorrow, and that process takes 6 months. I'm not going to be here for 6 months while we go through that process. Now, while we go through the civil process, I will be still going through that, but I'm not even going to stay here for that time frame. But I would say the disconnect is understanding that regardless of whether you want to see me as a tenant or not, once you allowed me, do I need to, is that disconnect?
Yes, if you don't mind.
People that I don't know are calling my phones. Okay, I would say that the disconnect is simply that you want something to happen in a quicker time frame than I can make possible. So I would say within the next 2 weeks, before the end of December, before there is anything serious, that I would be out of this property. It might even be within the next week that I would be fully packed up and have my stuff out. because now it's gotten to the point of harassment and messing with the peace. That was not a problem before. If that was a problem before, then I would have been on a speedier process to make this happen. But because I may have paid late and then make the payment and then you send me another invoice, I'm under.
You're getting sent multiple invoices because you behind. And you keep talking about my peace, the harassment, when you've been disrupting their peace for at least 10 months. When you've been disrupting their cash flow for at least 10 months.
The impression, because you send me another invoice for another month, that we are fine. Just like if I were renting an apartment and I paid it late and then I paid it later, you make the payment, everything goes back as long as you're making your payments.
No, it doesn't. It's some apartments where you pay late, you get a fee. And I'm pretty sure there are some apartments where you got a certain period of times that you can pay late before they go ahead and kick your behind up out of there.
So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, you're fine. So essentially when they sent you the payment request for when you wanted to extend, to you, that's an agreement of I'm going to stay
at the property, because why would you send me a payment link for rent if you don't want me to stay here? If you wanted me out in April, why did you send me one for April? If you wanted me out in May, why did you send me one in May? If you wanted me out in June, why did you send me a link for June, July, August, September, October? Why did you send me those links for payment? And if I was in the property unwilling, like you didn't want me in the property, and let's say I was being hostile. Let's say I was, now the home right now, I have a business, so that's why this stuff is here on the floor, right? But the home is not in a position where anything is being damaged. You know, like I haven't messed up the walls, there's nothing done. So if you wanted me out of the property because you felt like I was doing something to the property, or you just didn't want me at the property anymore, you would go through the process to make sure that the person cannot be at your property, which would be going through it legally, not because the person, whether you agree to a lease or not. If I own a home, I know that in order to get the person out, I have to make sure I go through the process to get them out. Why didn't that process happen if you wanted me out, and why were you continuing to send me invoices and accept the payment?
Since you own a business, right? Okay. So let's put it into your world. You make widgets, and this popular company buys a lot of widgets from you. They make the first payment. They're like, we're having a little bit of problems with our banking right now. We're trying to get a banking situation figured out. Can you deliver the products and we'll pay you the second payment tomorrow? You say, okay, cool. Tomorrow comes and they still haven't paid you, but you already delivered the product. And you're constantly going back, invoicing them, and they still don't send you your money. And this was a huge project. They were supposed to pay you $30,000. And business has gotten kind of slow for you. And you put a lot of resources into this project, and now it's time to pay the piper. And since the money ain't came and you struggling to pay your suppliers, your employees, and other business expenses that you have, so you're working overtime to make sure these people are paid, and you keep invoicing this company and they're not responding, and they're saying, hey, you're gonna have to go through the legal process. And then they got these big bad lawyers pushing a court date down the line, and you still ain't got your money, and you're fighting. Why didn't you send me my money? Well, ma'am, we had this issue with another company where we had to pay them $100,000, and due to that financial difficulty, we couldn't give you the $30,000 that we owed you, but we're still good for it. Well, when will I be receiving payment? Soon. So your lawyer and their lawyer agrees that you'll take half of the payment, which would be $15,000. And then when they were supposed to pay you the $15,000, they reneged because they had something else going on and they weren't sure they were going to be able to get you that money. You would be highly upset, wouldn't you? Because it's messing with your peace. Well, that's what you're doing to this lady. So cut it out. If you don't even pay her, just get out of her property so she can start recouping the money that she lost.
So if you send me an invoice, then you say, never mind, you know what? I'm not taking your payment. But you accept it all.
Would that have changed anything though? Because you mentioned that because you were here for 30 days, you have the tenant rights, and you were telling her she has to go through the court process.
So I would have the tenant process, wasn't even thinking about that until we got to the point of the harassment. So at no point in March or April or May did I think about.
What was considered harassment for you, just to clarify? Because it based on the messages, it seemed like you started claiming harassment when you started asking for the missed payments or money that wasn't received.
No, it's when you come to the home, you're banging on the door, the police say to you, you can't come in. You come in, you sit down, you threaten me, tell me that you're gonna break all of the windows in the house.
So she came inside and threatened you?
Yes. Okay. The police have it on their cameras. Like, they were wearing footage, the body cameras. Came in the home. Then you go outside of the home because they say, no, you know what, if you continue to do this, we're gonna arrest you because she has rights to be here. Despite them saying that she would come back every other day to say something or do something else in order to create hell.
Let me say this because respectfully to the people who have seen this, to those who have heard about. So
I'm sorry. So my point is that at no point prior to that was I ever saying, I have tenant rights, you better not do this, because there was no need for me to feel like I needed to have tenant rights before that. There was no need for me to feel like you're going to do something that is going to put my living in danger for me to feel like I need to protect myself, because I make a payment and we're back on good terms. So there was never a thought about what a tenant right was until we got to the point of that.
The contention.
Correct. Does that make sense to you?
It does. I hear you. It does look like this based on everything, and I'll give you, of course, a chance to respond after. It does look like, based on the court records, that you were getting evicted from Ava Noma because you were there for 13 months and only paid for a month. And around the time you were getting evicted, you booked this Airbnb for 32 days. You then told the homeowner you needed more time because of the alleged fire and things like that, and you wanted an extension, and asked to pay via Amex or another way outside of Airbnb. She accepted that extension. And then you continued staying. You say you paid. She says she never received payment. And then you said because you were here for 30 days, DC says you are a tenant and she has to go through the process to get you out. You signed an agreement saying that you would be out. She offered to pay you to leave, essentially. You signed and agreed and still did not leave. With all of that together, to her, it does appear, in a sense, with you knowing how DC laws work, that you kind of scammed your way into long-term housing.
Okay, so first of all, you said alleged fire. There was a fire. There's no alleged. A fire happened, a fire report happened, a police report happened, and it was investigated.
You know what else happened? An eviction notice happened. That wasn't alleged. That's in court documents, but you said so that was a lie.
Happened, so it's not alleged. So me saying I need to stay there because of a fire would not be an inaccurate statement, because there was a fire and I was displaced because of the fire, because there was so much water damage that it went all the way down to the first floor of the building. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, if you once you agreed that I could stay in the property after that and send invoices. Let's say, however, I asked, do you want to do it through Airbnb or do you want to do it directly?
Do you have that message?
I'm sure I can. I don't know.
I'll give you my number and you can send
yes.
it later.
So the option was never me saying, I want to pay you outside of Airbnb. That was never a statement. There was
Why
never.
Why did you correct that when she said that in court? Because she did say that you stated that you initiated the outside payment in court.
So I don't think she said that. So we had court today.
Yes.
And while I was trying to ask questions about the legality of things and ask other questions, the judge said you cannot. They were there only for the emergency hearing, which was the power being out. Okay. So the other issues where the questions of whether she's lying about payments and all of that, which I sent payments.
Y'all notice every time when she's talking, her fingers keep crossing because she lying. On her right, she been talking, this hand been going like this.
To the judge, which the judge could see the payments. Here's a payment for June.
Give me one quick second. Tell him to move us down to 5:30 because we're still talking. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the initiation to go out of Airbnb was not
her fingers keep wanting to cross.
Was not me. It was, and I don't recall that being asked in court. And if it was, when I was trying to ask questions, if you were there.
Y'all see her hand? Her fingers keep crossing.
Law questions that you're asking or trying to ask, it has no bearing today. That'll be reviewed next week.
One of the most important questions I want to make sure I do ask you, because I heard you say you're getting calls. I can say sitting here with you that you're also emotionally impacted by this, whatever side anything is on. What do you feel something has been misunderstood, and when people see this story and continue to see it, what do you want them to understand about you?
Me personally, or this situation?
You personally, and the situation.
Everyone has financial issues at some point. No one is free of something happening and they being 1 month or 1 week away from paying their rental payment. If you make your rental payment late, that does not mean that your landlord should be able to cut your power off to your home, that they should be able to come to the home to harass you, to get into the unit, or have your vehicle towed, or put signs on the thing in order to try to publicly humiliate you while you're going through a financial thing, because everyone has paid a bill late. Everyone has. And when you pay that bill late, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you should be under public scrutiny because you paid a bill late. We all have paid a bill late.
According to the homeowner, which I believe, because you have a tendency to only pay 1 month of rent. What about her having to pay a mortgage? What about her being late on her mortgage? She doesn't get to then say, hey, well, my tenant is not paying her rent, therefore I can't pay you. No, she's still responsible for that debt. You paying your rent late has consequences. And you feel that someone else should pay the consequence, not you. When you don't pay your bills, there's a late fee for a reason, because they're penalizing you for being late, because they're hoping that would deter you from doing it again.
But I guess one last question before I step out. 10 toes down, you're saying guys were in an agreement. She was renting to you. She was your landlord. You were a tenant.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the only reason why we are here, and that I have not been living here for months not paying. That is an inaccurate statement. That is an untrue statement. I cannot make invoices to send to her to live in her place. She had to initiate all of those, and you accepted my payment every month. Any way that I made, any of the payments that I made, she said in court that they were all successful. So to say that I paid with my credit card, which if anyone has an Amex, you know that you get points for making payments and then paying your credit card off the immediate month. I like to travel. I can pay it. If the Amex was not an acceptable form of payment, why was I allowed to make the payment that way?
I will say, speaking to both of you, this has created an extreme amount of stress and distress on both ends. So hopefully there's a resolve for both of you, truly. Because from speaking with both of you, there's some either big miscommunication on one side or the other. I think laws that exist and didn't necessarily help in this scenario as well. But it's not a unique scenario. This happens quite often.
But I feel like when it happens before, there's someone who is intentionally trying to work a system.
You the person that's intentionally working the system. Shadja Romero. You that person. Call is literally coming from inside of the house.
If I were trying to work a system, I would not have made any payments to you. You know, like if I was trying to get into this property to circumvent something, and you would have never received another payment from me outside of the Airbnb. There would have never been another payment, but you were receiving payments every month. So I wasn't trying to circumvent some process. But when it came to protecting myself, my children, and even my child, who is not my child, who's like my adopted daughter, if it comes to protecting them, then I have to protect myself. If that means now saying you're harassing me and you're cutting my power off and I don't have hot water, I have tenant rights, then that's when I'm going to say that.
So it was in your mind self-defense.
Correct. It wasn't I never mentioned tenant rights before anything was done to make me have to feel like I have to have tenant rights, because I wasn't worried about that, because we were making payments. There would be no issue.
Okay. It seems like it may have escalated from Airbnb guests extending to this, what is now a contentious situation, when you maybe started bringing up tenant rights in this.
But that wasn't until last month. So it's not like, so in March, April, May, June, July, I never said, I have tenant rights here. You know, like, because I never.
It wasn't in your mind.
Ma'am, you use Airbnb to circumvent the system. How'd she do that? Because she had prior evictions, there's a high likelihood it would have been difficult for her to find a new apartment. So she had to go through Airbnb this time to run her scam. She got a 32-day short-term rental where she paid the rent for a month. And then she used the tenant rights against the homeowner and claimed tenancy to have long-term residence until homeowner is able to get her out. She has been kicked off of the Airbnb platform, so she's probably going to use another platform or use someone else's name and claim tenancy as someone else's residence. So there is a happy ending for the homeowner.
Exclusive reporting getting results for a Northeast homeowner who now has her home back from a squatter. 7 News Washington, D.C. reporter Felicia Ashley shares the changes people want to see.
The house at the center of it all slowly starting to look like a home again. The sheet that was placed over the sign has been removed, but community members want to know what happens now when someone tries to play the system again. An overwhelming response from thousands across the world asking how D.C. laws allowed alleged serial squatter Shadja Romero.
Okay, the cameraman is hilarious when he zoomed in on those dirty socks. Thanks ABC7 for sharing his story and bringing light to this case. That woman is shameless. The place is a mess. DC, do better protect your homeowners. I'm so glad the homeowner received justice. The way I have been following this story like it was a Hulu limited series, I'm glad the law was on the right side. Now moving forward, how can Airbnb protect this from happening again? The camera operating filming the episode of The Office
to go on for so long, and reactions and concerns right here in D.C. from residents and onlookers who came to the home to see what they called an unbelievable situation. Do you know the homeowner or Miss Romero?
No, not whatsoever. I got it thanks to the news that it went public like how it did. What brought me here today, because I think she needs a little bit of help, moving out, so she got people here to help her.
I'm trying to put her out too. I think we all just trying to put her out. We all want her out. The whole DMV wants her out of this lady's home.
Why has this story touched you in that personal way?
It could be me. It could be someone scarred in my home or my Airbnb or yours. So I think we just want the laws changed.
I went to the mayor about the laws. Have seen some of the recent reports of the DC squatter situation in Northeast DC.
Yes, I have.
What has been your reaction to it, and do you think there needs to be some adjustments or reevaluations to some of the housing laws?
Well, that's what I've been talking about for at least a year, is that we have to have a focus on people paying their rent, and that the courts and our laws ensuring that people do that.
I also reached out to D.C. Councilwoman Brooke Pinto, who provided this statement following our coverage, saying in part that when guests don't honor their agreement and stay on a property without paying, it's unfair to property owners who are following district policies, and said additional oversight from the Committee on Housing is needed. And Councilman Zachary Parker said in part that he was glad about the judge's ruling and that he is currently reviewing district laws to better understand how this was allowed to happen. The homeowners told me that they have lost upwards of $30,000 from this situation with Romero, from attorney fees, damages, to loss of services from when she was in the house, as well as extra fees. In addition to that, they say their mortgage has gone from just over $4,000 a month to nearly $10,000 a month because they could not keep up with the payments while Romero was staying in the home. For now, reporting from Northeast DC, Felicia Ashley, 7 News.
But when her peace got threatened, oh no, I had to call the hotline. I'm depressed. You depressed because you wasn't paying your rent and you had to find a new way to scam you stinking devil? Oh my gosh.
And today's 7 News getting results in the case between the D.C. homeowner and the woman who was squatting in her home.
That's right, and this is actually one of the first times the homeowners have been back to the home in a couple of months. And as you mentioned, the judge ordered that the alleged squatter is not a tenant, therefore she has no tenant rights, and the homeowners were allowed to get her out of the home and evict her immediately, and that is what you are seeing. We have community members that actually came here to support the homeowners and help clear out the home after watching the reports and hearing what the homeowners were dealing with. And even inside the home, you can see some of the area that they have started clearing as well. The homeowner mentioned to me that she has been in shock and everything that was with everything that was inside of this home, as well as some of the damage that she found as well. Now, coming up at 6, I'm going to share more details about what happened in the courtroom, also about how this has impacted the homeowners long term. Now, because of the missed payments, their mortgage raised from $4,000 a month to nearly $10,000 a month because of what they endured during this process.
And today's 7 News.
I hope they sue her. Fortunately for us, the squatter did speak out after she got kicked out. Come on here, lady.
People reaching out to the stores that my products in. I've had people reaching out to the schools that I have mentored girls in. I've had people reaching out to organizations that I've done free events for. Mind you, about 98 to 99% of the work that I have done has been from me. Even when I've needed help, I've helped because I've always thought it's somebody out here worse than me.
Well, since you in a mood to help, why don't you pay them homeowners that $30,000 that you owe them? Their mortgage went from $4,000 to $10,000 a month. $6,000 increase. All because you didn't want to leave their house. I have no sympathy for you whatsoever. Those tears that you about to cry, you're wasting them. You got evicted from your residence because you wasn't paying your rent there. You stayed there for free for 13 months. You stayed in these people's house dang near for a year, no rent. And you're talking about you being a mentor in a community. You don't need to be mentoring nobody because you're not in the right space to be mentoring. Your life is not in alignment with that unless you out here giving free game to other scammers. I'm doing speaking events for free. You don't need to be doing speaking events for free because you have not been paying your rent. You need to charge because you got bills to pay. You don't need to be an entrepreneur because apparently your company is not making enough money to allow you to pay your rent. Yeah, they're calling the stores to let them know what type of person they dealing with.
Today in court, it was proven, or it was admitted, that the false narrative that I have been staying at a place since February and that someone has been trying to get me out since March, it was untrue. It was not true. The narrative that I had been staying at a place since February and had not made a payment since March, that was also untrue. It was admitted on record that payments had been received up until the end of September. Now there is a payment.
Okay, so you paid to the end of September. Let's see, October, November, December. So why wouldn't you pay your rent in October? Why you ain't paying November?
Question. Somehow that payment wasn't received. I bet. But there's a payment. There's only one payment in question. So the narrative that I have been staying at a place since March and not making any payments, it was untrue. Documentation was provided that showed that I did not initiate the switching from Airbnb to direct payments to the owner and some scheme to circumvent a process that wasn't the case. Those direct payments were sent, those direct links were sent willingly. Not only willingly, but they were initiated by the other party. Although it was decided that I don't have tenant rights, those things were untrue. And to get on the news to say things that are untrue shows a lot about a person's character and shows that they had malicious intent because they knew it would go off like this. And the thing about the truth is that the truth doesn't always, it's not heard as loud as the lie is. So
you ain't never lied. Like, you claiming you made the payment. The news included court documents of you doing this at other residents. You were in the midst of an eviction because you had only paid a month worth of rent. What does that sound like? The same thing you did at the Airbnb. Prior to these two incidents, you had another one where you were being evicted for the same exact thing. She's going to find a new scam that has to do with housing because she doesn't feel like she needs to pay rent. And I hope DC looks at the laws concerning this and change it, because it doesn't make sense where you have people, they are without income for months on end because of people like you, and they at the end have to take the financial hit. That's unfair. They need protection too. You did what you did with malicious intent, and you knew you were going to get away with it because you understand the tenancy rights in DC. Nothing more, nothing less. So you can go ahead and cry me a river.
Damage that this has caused, irreparable.
I bet.
I'm gonna take some time away because, as I said, this has been the hardest. Everything that I do with my business, I do it with love. Everything I do with my nonprofit, I do with love. And I can't do either right now. With the amount of pain that is in my heart. To those who waited to make their judgment, to get the facts that just wasn't true, thank you. To the people who made their decision and left comments, the people who know me or who have known me, and y'all wouldn't say it to my face.
Why not? It's the truth. You've had multiple evictions.
I wish, as I always wish, I hope you know love up close. And the thing about it is, when you know love up close, you move differently. You don't move to find things about somebody and break them down. You don't do that. You don't make fake pages and fake numbers to harass people. You don't do that when you moving with love. And when you moving with love, you pay your rent. When you moving with love, you handle your obligations. When you're moving with love, you pay what you owe. When you're moving with love, you do things decently in order. When you do it in love, you don't despitefully use other people. You know love up close. And because I know love up close, I know I will be okay.
I bet you will.
I might not be okay in this moment, but I will be, because I have some people who will make sure that when I'm too deep in the trenches, they pull me out. That's all I got.
Good. This economy is nothing to play with, and I don't like seeing people take advantage of a system that was designed to protect tenants initially, and it was for a good cause, but you have people like her that use it for malicious purposes. They skate through the system and they cause people financial distress, and it's not cool, with no remorse, and then pretend like they're the victim. I hope that the homeowners get back on their feet. As always, remember that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Stay blessed.